Hey guys, Constance here. Welcome back to Good Life Farm. So I am just kind of resting this evening. My son and daughter-in-law were just over for dinner and they just headed home. I made a really easy sort of recipe which I'm going to share in a video this week. I don't want to give anything away. But yesterday was Passover, and I have been celebrating Passover for, gosh, many years. Passover goes evening to evening, and so because yesterday was Passover, it actually started on Friday evening at sunset. Between sunset and dark is when you generally will celebrate with a meal called a Seder. And there's a lot of traditional elements to a Seder. However, biblically speaking, there's only just a few things, including bitter herbs, which I use horseradish for, unleavened bread, matzah, and then lamb. And not everybody does lamb. There's a few different views on whether you should use lamb or not. We usually do, although next year I think I might do something a little bit different. I mentioned in a video the other day where I was talking about the paleo gluten-free matzah recipe that I have, that Passover is actually the kickoff of a 7-day feast called unleavened bread. And during that time, we don't consume any bread with leavening. We purge everything. We purge the freezer, the pantry. We make sure that there's no leavening in the house. And it is representative of sin in our lives. And you know, you don't even realize how much leavening there is until you start looking for it, and just when you think you've got it all, you find more. And that's how it is with the things in our lives that we are constantly working at getting out. Now, every year when we do Passover, I usually do something different for the main dish, and sometimes there's other things that are different. Sometimes there's things that are always the same, like the bitter herbs, the matzah, the haroset, which is it's kind of like an apple chutney, which I will be sharing my recipe for that on my website this week for future reference. Now this year I did also make the Matzah Candy, which is also called matzah bark or matzah crack, because it is so good you just can't stop eating it. I made 2 batches of that. I made a gluten-free version so that my daughter-in-law could enjoy some. And then I made a batch of the regular kind, again using matzah. And this is a recipe that went up on my website last year, and I actually did a full video tutorial on how to make this. It is absolutely delicious. You can also make this with saltine crackers if you happen to have some of those on hand, but it's a great way to use up some matzah when you are doing unleavened bread and Passover. This year I also made a potato kugel, which is very much like a kind of a hash brown casserole, I guess you could say, but it's not a cheesy one. It's very simple. You shred up about 5 pounds of russet potatoes that have been peeled, and you let those soak in some cold water while you get the rest of the ingredients together, which is some eggs, some salt and pepper, and you beat those until they are nice and fluffy. And then I melt some duck fat. Duck fat is kind of one of my favorite cooking fats. And so I melted a little bit of that. And once that was melted, I just turned the heat off and let it sit there. And then I went ahead and I drained the potatoes and I squeezed out as much of the water as I possibly could get out. And then I combined those with a red onion that I had diced. You can also grate the onion if you want a really intense oniony flavor. But this time around I just diced it because I was taking it over for a potluck for fellowship, and I didn't know if everybody wanted that intense onion flavor. I love onion, but not everybody does. And so this time I just diced the onion. And so you combine those two in a really big bowl and then sprinkle in some potato starch and then toss those together to get that all mixed into the potatoes and onion. And then you add in the egg mixture, toss it to coat, and then I take my baking pan that I preheated in the oven while the oven was preheating. And so this pan was sizzling hot, and I poured a little bit of that duck fat in there, spread it all out in the bottom of the pan, added the potatoes. They were sizzling as they hit the pan. And then I spread those out, get it nice and even, and then I brushed the rest of the duck fat over the top of the potatoes and then put them into the oven until they were beautiful and golden. It takes a little over an hour for those to cook. And that is actually a recipe that can be made ahead of time. It heats up really, really well and holds up. And you can eat it plain. You could put some shredded cheese on top if you wanted to. And you could also serve it with some sour cream and some minced chives or some scallions. And then this year, the main dish I chose to do was glazed lamb chops. They were roasted with vegetables, some yellow squash, some bell pepper, and onion, and those were just kind of tossed with a little bit of olive oil and some salt and pepper, spread out on a baking sheet. Add in the lamb chops, and I made a very simple glaze out of some of that pomegranate jelly that I shared with all of you a few weeks ago, and some Worcestershire sauce. Melt that together in a saucepan, brush it over the top of the lamb chops, pop it in the oven for 20 to 25 minutes, depending upon how done you like your lamb chops. And about halfway through, I brushed a second coat of that glaze on there. And, oh, and lemon. I almost forgot the lemon. A little squeeze of lemon juice, and then I tossed the rest of the lemon wedges in with all of the veggies and roasted that all together. So super simple and just really, really great to do, and beautiful colors as well on the platter. So that was the gist of our Passover feast this year. The lamb chop recipe and the potato kugel are on my website, and like I said, I'll be adding the haroset recipe to my website this week for future use, and as well as the one that I made tonight, which, like I said, terrible teaser. I'm not going to give you any hints. You'll just have to watch and see. So that is it for today. Thanks for hanging out here at the homestead. My name is Constance at A Good Life Farm, and I'll talk to y'all next time.